called. So like,
It's a good note to start on.
yeah.
Okay, Gwen Frisbie-Fulton, welcome to whatever this is in terms of Beacon Media. So I was just saying, I think what we are going to do, if not every week, I think pretty often, is bring our Beacon voices on, our writers on, and like let's talk about, we have a 600 to 800 word column that comes out every single week, but you only get so much depth with 600, 800 words. And I think particularly with your column this week, there's a lot of depth there, there's a lot of story there. So first off, maybe if you could tell folks a little bit about who you are, and also maybe tell them about who you are as a mom, because that really relates to your column this week.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I always start at about, 2,000 words, and then the rest of my time is trying to cut that down to something that's able to be printed, 700, 800 words. So, yeah, there's always more to say, right? Um,
Writing is rewriting, right?
Anybody who's tried to write even a letter to the editor, 150 words, has definitely experienced that. So, yeah, so I'm a mom. Um, I think kind of first and foremost, I live in Greensboro. Um, I'm a mom and my kid just turned 18, so I'm definitely in a different level and age of parenting, but for both of us. Um, but I'm a single mom, and I have been ever since my son was born. And so it's always just been the two of us, and I think that that's been like a really big, uh, you know, our children are definitely guideposts for us. They definitely tie us down and free us up in so many ways. But one part of being a mom that I think like folds into my writing frequently is when you're a mom, you're sort of a practitioner of the future, right? Like you're always thinking intergenerationally. You're always thinking forward past our own, lives and thinking sort of aspirationally and into the future.
Mm.
Um, and I think that that adds a dimension on, right, to like our organizing, to our activism, and then of course to our writing.
Can you talk a little bit about this is one area where I know there's a lot of depth. Like it's hard to be a single mom, I think at any age, but especially when you have a baby. And you wrote a little bit about like the cost of childcare, which let's get into that in a second. But like what have you been thinking about, like basically the younger mom that like got through what I assume was like maybe a beautiful, maybe a hard period? Like, what are some of the memories that you have from back then that you've been thinking about now as your son goes to college?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about those days because all of a sudden they're this like vibrant, cool, capable adult in front of you, who are, headed out. He's headed out in a few months to go to NC State, go pack.
Oh,
And
so he decided.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, he decided last minute
Congratulations.
decision, but he made his decision just yesterday. So,
Congrats to both
but
of you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a big accomplishment, and it definitely makes you think back, right? You think back over 18 years of our, our little family and our togetherness. And, as much as I'm talking about moms being this sort of forward thinking, aspirational people, there's also just a lot of nuts and bolts to it, right? Because we have a
Mm.
society where it's really hard to make ends meet for a two-parent family, not to mention if you're a single parent. And I've been reflecting a lot on that because I do want better for other moms. I do want better for other parents. I do want better for children. Um, and I think we can do that. We have a lot of models that we can follow. We have a lot of ideas. We just have to have political will to make those changes. But yeah, so I think that like parenting is interesting because part of it is this dreamy future look into all that can be because you see all that potential. And then it's a lot of balancing checkbooks and doing laundry. And it's, feels stacked against you a lot of the time.
Yeah. in terms of the childcare debate, the numbers that you put in the column are pretty staggering. And I think anybody who, even if you just know parents, like they all struggle, even if they make a lot of money,
Mhm.
struggle with childcare costs, right? And so for people who are doing it alone, and for couples that don't have as much money, just this basic thing of taking care of your child is so hard in America. I don't know. I mean, not to get too bleak, but like what does that say about like how it just feels like it feels like a microcosm of a lot of the issues that we see. And so like because this is literally like basic stuff, like everybody should have like the ability to literally survive these first months of your life when you have to work and to make money, but you also have to care for a child. I don't know if you have any grand thoughts on like just like what it says about where we are as society that that is so hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, you live your days, certainly as a single parent, but I think any parent can identify with this sort of like damned if you do, damned if you don't feeling where, um, we have a society that gets really mad at parents who don't work. But then, folks like myself end up paying more than half of our income to pay for childcare so we can even go to work.
Mm,
Um, and financially, it doesn't even make sense to do it. And I was talking to a mom in Texas just earlier this week, and she comes from a pretty middle class family, two wage earners, two kids, and she was just talking about how all the logistics of childcare and the cost still didn't make sense. And she was talking about how she chose to basically pursue her career less. So she is a massage therapist, and she was like, well, I just took less clients. And there was this sadness in her voice. Like she actually wanted to both be an awesome mom and pursue her career. But the way, things are sliced and diced and the way we have to draw lines, those lines often end up running right down the middle of families, parents, and specifically mothers.
mm,
Um, and, she had to make these choices. And life is full of hard choices, right? We can't care for all of them. But it does seem that because this is predominantly a woman's issue, it's women who run childcare facilities and work in them predominantly. And it's mothers who need childcare and often um, are the ones facilitating, that transaction most commonly. Um, it's disregarded and it's seen as something very
mm.
private instead of something public and political. But anytime when over 50% of the population is having difficulty with something, just statistically and numerically, you have a public problem. It's no longer a minority. It's no longer a small segment, and it's no longer personal. And well over half of parents in this country, and certainly moms, are struggling to either afford or even find childcare for their families. And just statistically, that means it's a public and political issue.
Yeah. And it's such a contradiction too, because we prize work. We prize the dogs barking. Can you hear that?
Mhm.
Okay,
No,
sorry.
no,
Okay,
I can't
good.
hear the dog.
All right.
No, wish
I'm
I
glad
could.
that I'm probably not going to edit this, so we'll just it's fine. Um, basically, like it's such a contradiction because we prize work ethic, and in your example, it's like this mother who wants to work is sort of like can't basically because of how expensive childcare is, and then you pointed this out in your column that it's also like, well, it's your fault for not making enough money while we keep the federal minimum wage at 7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
So like what will it take to make this and you such a good point too, sorry about private issue because is that because it's a women's issue? Is that why it's treated that way?
I think so. I think because it's a women's issue predominantly, both on the income and the payment side. Um, and also because it's a family issue, right? Like we're an interesting nation because we love families and we love children. But we don't do a lot to show that love. We certainly don't prioritize
I was going to
kids.
say we say that, but it
Yeah,
doesn't feel like we act that way all
we
the
sure
time.
don't. I mean, and when it comes to legislating things, when it comes to policy, when it comes to government, one of the best ways of showing love is in a budget. And there's not a lot of lines for families or children in budgets. In fact, that's where the first cuts often come, and we're seeing that at the federal level right now. And so, you just sort of live as a parent and as a mother, you live knowing this, um, that we're certainly not putting our money where our mouth is. And we're rarely moving our politics in that way because we want to say that what happens like in a home and in a family is this private affair. But when you have systems that don't work, um, that becomes a very public issue.
Yeah, maybe we should have had this conversation before because one of the best ways we show love is in a budget is a great line that we should have included in the column next time. Um, last question. Yeah, what do you think? I don't know, what would you like say to other mothers, other families who are struggling with this issue? And like, how do we make this a political issue so that our, local, state, federal leaders actually deal with this, given that literally, like you said, at least half the population is dealing with it. And then also childcare workers who are paid terribly. Like this is affecting a massive universe of people. And it should be the definition of a political issue. So like, I don't know, do you have any last thoughts kind of on how we move the ball in that direction?
Yeah, two things. One, what you're saying is this is not just a parent issue. It's not just a mom issue. It's also a workers issue, about rights and pay, care worker issue. And it's also an employer issue. North Carolina employers want better childcare also in this country because when they know the limitations and the barriers that their employees are running into, and it's going to ultimately impact their workplace and their bottom line as well. And so we have to see it as this issue that cuts on multiple sides, and has impact on multiple sides, and then act like a coalition together, of parents, workers, and employers to address it. The other piece is, I think, what I was talking about in the column, which is just making sure this isn't something that we suffer privately, sort of suffer after the kids have gone to bed and we're working out our own household budgets, something that we talk about, maybe with other moms on the side of the playground, but actually turn it into political conversations. And I think that that means, being very forward with it, and asking questions of our government, like why are family issues such as paid leave and childcare not on the table? Why aren't you moving legislation around that when that impacts the most of us? But I think something that's happened, Jeremy, is that um, we've come to expect very little of our government, in this country. And we've come to sort of not even know, what we can ask for. And the point is, like, we're making the government and we can ask for whatever it is we want to ask for. But we've fallen into
Mm.
this cycle of kind of like waging out culture wars and, sort of esoteric debates in government instead of just getting concrete shit that people need. And this would be a great example of shit we need.
Very well put. A great place to stop. Thank you, Gwen. I will put your Substack in the notes. But tell people the name in case they read this transcript.
Yeah. So I write working class storytelling on Substack, where I talk to working class people, about the organizing that they're doing all over the country. So definitely check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Gwen. Talk to you
Thanks,
later.
Jeremy.